All right, it sounds like a hot one, but good morning, everyone, and welcome into Mid Morning. Dr. Keith Watson is joining me in studio.
Good morning.
And look, we were talking, we know a lot of you guys have plans for the weekend, it being 4th of July, but we need to be careful about staying in all of this heat, especially when it comes to our kiddos.
Mississippi's horrible this time of year as far as the heat.
And humid.
Oh my gosh,
The humidity is, I think, the roughest part at it.
I love Mississippi. I've lived here 20 years, but the summers are brutal.
Brutal, yeah. So, Dr. Watson, I guess, you know, whenever I think of heat exhaustion, I think of people my age or like older adults, but we really do need to be cautious in watching our kids whenever they're in the heat too long.
Yeah, it actually affects them quicker than it does us.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So why is that?
Smaller size, but their body surface area relative to their size is greater. So that's a science lesson for another day that nobody wants to hear. Basically, temperature extremes affect them faster.
Okay. Whether it's hot or cold.
Whether it's hot or cold.
So your baby's going to get hotter quicker, your baby's going to get colder quicker.
Correct.
Now, whenever it comes to, like, let's say maybe a 6-month-old to a 1-year-old, I feel like they cannot obviously express when they're very hot, except maybe crying. So as a parent, what do you need to do to keep them cool so that they're not overheating?
Yeah, foremost, try to avoid, again, here in Mississippi, this is next to impossible, but the hottest parts of the day.
Okay.
Do things in the mornings and the evenings if you're going to be outdoors.
Okay.
Try to, if you have to be out in the hot parts of the day, limit the exposure. And I would maybe say anybody, if you can, 30 minutes or so before you're in the shade or indoors getting cool again and staying hydrated. Drink, 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 drink.
And, we were talking about, a lot of people, families are going to the zoo and stuff. And it's easy to put the baby in maybe one of those little pouches. I don't know exactly what they're called, guys. But you kind of recommended that may not be the best thing to do. It's convenient.
It's very convenient, but you're also sharing body heat when your child is up next to you.
Gotcha.
And it's hard to stay cool and those types of things. And again, it being a young child, the heat exposure affects them quicker.
Okay.
Trying to stay out of this heat during the hottest parts of the day is paramount to young children. If you have to be out, you keep a very close eye on them, make sure they're drinking, make sure they get into the shade or come in out of the heat every few minutes to cool off. So if they want to play outside for 20 or 30 minutes, come in, make sure they're drinking water, and then watching for signs of heat exhaustion and those types of things is important.
And what would those signs be in children?
So if the child's old enough to talk, they may express that they don't feel good.
Okay.
They could be dizzy. They could say they have a headache. They could be grumpy or irritable. Those types of things. And adults will feel the same thing.
Yes.
If you're out in the heat and you're starting to get a headache and feel dizzy and feel weak and just not feeling yourself, that's heat exhaustion. And you need to get indoors, sit down, and start drinking.
Okay. Now, let's just say we have the child, they maybe have played outside too long and they don't seem to get better. At that point, do we need to take them to the ER or call the pediatrician, or what do we do at that point?
If your child's not acting right, not himself, doesn't seem to be alert, and you bring him in and try to let him or her cool off, and he's not responding, that is an absolute emergency room visit.
So we don't need to wait any longer at that point. We need to go directly there.
No.
And then I guess whenever they would go to the hospital, what then would happen? Would they get, or can babies get IVs?
Absolutely.
Okay, y'all. I'm not medical, so I don't know all this stuff. I don't have kids either. So this is
I've put IVs in newborns. So
wow.
So yes, they can get IVs and they can be hydrated and monitored to prevent the heat exhaustion from progressing to more serious conditions, because heat exhaustion that's not fixed, for lack of a better way of saying it, can lead to seizures, strokes, and permanent neurologic damage that you don't recover from.
Interesting. All right, guys. Well, we're going to pick up this conversation when we come back from the break, so stay with us. All right, welcome back, guys. So, it is so important that everyone is staying hydrated whenever it's super hot here in Mississippi, but especially that we're taking a look after our children. So, Dr. Watson, whenever it comes to kids, small or maybe, into the older end, do they need to be drinking water, or do they need to be drinking maybe a drink more with like electrolytes? What would be better?
It depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
For children just outdoors playing because it's summertime and they're swimming, water is the single most important thing that you drink to stay hydrated. Now, for athletes that may be working out, lifting, running, playing in a game, a football or baseball game where you're out in the heat for hours at a time, electrolyte drinks are very helpful.
Okay.
But if you don't have those, water works.
Okay.
It's not a complicated process. Drink a lot of water if you are out in the heat.
And then we were also talking about sweating. So sweating is a good sign, correct? That you're trying to cool down, your body is. But we do need to be careful whenever it comes to the small kids sweating.
Yeah,
correct?
when you sweat, you're losing fluid from your body. So it is an attempt to cool your body, but it dehydrates you.
Yes.
So you have to combat that again with drinking a lot of water and staying hydrated.
And then another drink that Dr. Watson consumes, which I don't know if I could do this, but you said maybe after a workout, or these people who might be getting in these athletic routines, a good thing to replenish is milk.
Yeah, there have been articles out that milk after a workout,
Okay.
now not necessarily a game like football or something, but somebody like me who goes to the gym and lifts weights, I've read studies where milk is a good replacement drink for weightlifters because it has milk. Wow. It has fats, sugars, and proteins, which is what your body needs after a muscle workout to help your muscles heal. So milk post-workout's not a bad deal. I don't know that I would drink a lot of milk following a lot of outdoor activity.
Oh,
I'm afraid that would not sit well.
Yeah, I just think your stomach would be soured after that.
I don't know that would end well.
Now, do you know if there's a better, like just regular milk versus chocolate milk?
I've heard, and I don't know the doctor answer.
Okay.
I could really look into the research, but I've heard that chocolate milk's not terrible for you after a workout.
Yeah.
Again, the chocolate just adds more sugar. So I don't know that
A little more flavor.
Yeah, a little more flavor. I would rather drink chocolate milk than
okay.
but I don't know that it's better for you, so I can't put the doctor stamp on that one.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, like we said, as you're heading out to all your summer activities, your weekend activities for the 4th of July, you need to, stay cool, stay hydrated, make sure you're watching the kiddos and not letting them overheat. And I know we were talking about little fans that a lot of people I see on the strollers and stuff. Those help, obviously, to cool down.
Yeah, they help cool you.
But they're not perfect.
They're not perfect because, yes, the fan may be cooling you, but if you're still in the sun as it beats down on you, your body is still dehydrated.
Yeah.
So short stints outside, lots of water, get in the shade, be very aware of the signs that you or your child are getting dehydrated and starting to suffer heat exhaustion.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Watson, it was great having you in studio. Guys, we'll be right back.